All right, what's up, guys? So here we are on the Living the Dream People of Austin podcast. And today we have Dr. Choquette Hamilton, who is a social entrepreneur. And I was just browsing over her LinkedIn a little bit, and she has some really exciting stuff to talk about. Really motivated person. Also, a little side note, she wakes up at 3:30. So let's all get to that point because your days get a lot more productive when you wake up that early. So how are you doing today, Dr. Choquette?
I'm actually doing pretty well. I'm in San Diego right now as we're talking I'm at the ASU GSV conference, which is a conference for entrepreneurs in the ed space. So I'm really enjoying my time here.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's awesome. How long has the conference been going on?
It actually started Sunday night and it's going through Thursday, but I have to get home today because I have little children at home. Well, they're not as little as they used to be. They're 8 and 10, but they're ready for mom to come home.
Yeah, no, for sure. That makes perfect sense. Well, that's a great segue into our first little piece. So, we just love to hear about our guests when they first come on. And so, tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe your family, and what you do for fun.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I am a mama of William and Gregory. They're 8 and 10 years old, and a wife. Greg is my husband. We've been married for about 11 years now. And originally from El Paso, Texas, and from a military family. And luckily for me, a lot of military families move around. Well, we were lucky enough to stay in one place in El Paso, but ended up in Austin to go to UT Austin as an undergraduate. And that's really what kind of brought me to Austin the first time. And I ended up leaving to join Teach for America in Philadelphia, stayed out in Philly for a while, got a couple of master's degrees, and then came back to Austin to work for the University of Texas. So that's kind of how I came Austin. But as you mentioned at the top in the intro, I consider myself to be now a social entrepreneur. This is a brand new identity for me. Actually a baby entrepreneur, especially being around so many entrepreneurs who like own million and billion dollar companies. It's amazing to see the potential in the entrepreneur space. But I got to this place because of my overall commitment to social justice. And when you ask me about who I am, I would say, I have always had this conviction and belief in fairness and justice and equality, even as a young child, before I even had the words and the true understanding of what it means to be fair and just. And so I feel like that conviction has guided all that I am and all that I do, even in like my personal life. Like one of the reasons why I wake up so early is because I find it important I love to read. Learning is one of my talents. Learning is a skill that I have. And it's just something I love to do. And so I learn by reading. And so one way I can fit it into my very busy life is through waking up early and doing a lot of self-care, meditation, and journaling and exercising. Um, so that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, no, for sure. And so, um, you said military family ended up in Austin for UT for
Mm-hmm.
undergrad, Teach for America in Philadelphia, came back to Austin, working for UT. Social entrepreneur is kind of what you are now, and some of the things you like to do for fun,
Mm.
reading, waking up early for self care and stuff. Do you have anything else in that recreation category, or is like your social entrepreneurship kind of just living out your passion and that's what is fun for you?
Yeah, I think that definitely takes up a lot of my emotional bandwidth as well as time. I am a founder of a nonprofit 501c3. I prefer to use 501c3 as opposed to nonprofit because we have, ideas about what that means. But I've always been in the pretty much ed space. I have my PhD in ed policy from UT. I worked at UT for 8 years, and then, I started in K-12. I went back to K-12 for about 4 to 5 years. And when I had my own children, I realized that, it's very clear to me that education inequity starts much sooner than kindergarten in the K-12 space. And I saw it as a huge missed opportunity for us folks who consider ourselves to be education advocates and advocates for educational equity, that we are just missing the most critical time of a child's life in brain development. 80% of brain development happens before the age of 3. And I felt like, where I was trying to figure out where my path was going to go, I realized it was going to be in early care and education. And so I, in 2018, formed a nonprofit, Rise Child Development Center, Inc. And for 3.5 years, I've been trying to get, open. We're an anti-racist organization created to dismantle inequity in early childhood education. And we do that by co-creating with parents and community, diverse by design childcare centers, using an innovative financial model that is designed to reduce the cost of tuition for parents while also increasing the salaries for our staff, who tend to be predominantly women of color. And so I created this theoretical model that I've been seeking to prove that it was possible. And it's been challenging because when you think about childcare, the cost is enormous. The cost of entry into the market is prohibitive. And so after 3.5 years, we're going to be opening in September a small pilot program. We're partnering with IDEA Public Schools on Runberg, and I'm super excited. We'll be their on-site care provider for their families and their teachers and staff. And it's going to give us the opportunity to really prove that model. But other than that, I am a consultant and a coach. I call myself the liberation coach, because I think about, what prevents us from living our best lives and what prevents us from thriving, and instead operating in this survival mode. And that's the lack of choice and options. And the lack of choice and options, there's lots of reasons we have those. The primary reason is white supremacy and racism, but other things like our own choices, like our own decisions. And so I help people, get to their full potential and whatever that means for them. And so I've been doing consulting and coaching for about 18 months now. I think the pandemic has helped spur that component. And essentially that's what pays the bills, because, as a startup on my 501c3 side, we're still trying to get off the ground. So I put together lots of different ways of being, but all within this idea of creating a more just world for all folks, but particularly those who identify as Black, Indigenous people of color.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love that. I love that. That is awesome. So let's move a little bit into your motivation now. And I know you said you have a conviction for social justice and fairness, and it's been there ever since you were a kid. But tell us a little bit about that conviction, what's behind it, why it's there, or it has just always been there and that's it. That's your motivation.
Yeah. There was never, some folks have those moments where it was like a moment in time, and that just kind of spurred their, this desire or this motivation, as you put it. But for me, it was kind of like the slow burn. My parents are an interracial couple. My mom identifies as white. My dad is Black. And, growing up as a mixed race child in a majority people of color environment. So El Paso is about 76% Latinx. And so that experience did not preclude me from racism. I didn't understand it as racism at the time. And then, then there was obviously some interpersonal bias between, racial, ethnic identities. But, just my experience being able to see very viscerally inequity and injustice and unfairness. And for whatever reason, I was always able to spot it. And I always just felt like it shouldn't be this way. And I was the kid that spoke up, and there was consequences for speaking up. And at some point I made the decision as like, I really don't care. And I'm going to follow my, what feels right to me. Authenticity is one of my core values as an individual, as a person. And if I was in a position where I felt something was wrong and I couldn't speak up for that, it felt inauthentic for me as a human. And so I leaned into that, and have always found ways to like advocate for when something wasn't right. And it just kind of compounded and grew over time. And then as I began to develop the understanding and the language and the skills to address inequity in very real strategic ways, I knew that there was something here. And so I just kind of continued on in that vein, and everywhere I went, it was, I always found that opportunity to speak up and speak out. So an example I will give: when I was at UT Austin, I told you I grew up in El Paso, and we're a majority people of color environment. And that was the first time I was around all white folks. And, my mom was white. So I just never really thought about it. Like we didn't really talk about racial identity. I kind of navigated it the way I could, the way I did, without a lot of direction. And once I got to UT, it was my first all white environment. It was very much a shock that I was not ready for. And I experienced a lot of, overt racism, a lot of implicit bias. And I was like, oh no, this is not, I was like, this is not right. And so, early on in my UT career, I became a student activist and pushing for policy change. My senior thesis was on the history of African American activism at UT, because that history was undocumented. And we were having what I learned was, as I was talking to older students, is that we were having these same conversations over and over each generation of students, and we weren't making progress. And so my theory of change, if you will, was like, if we can document this and build on what people were doing in the past, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can just pick up the baton from where they left off. And a lot has changed at the university since I was there. I would like to believe that I helped contribute to those big changes, like having the division of diversity and community engagement, the removal of the statues, the Confederate statues on the lawn, having some of the classes, like having mandatory classes around diversity, equity, inclusion. So those are just some of the policy changes that, as a student, I tried to facilitate those changes and create a space for other students coming behind me to pick up the baton and keep it moving. And so we see some of those shifts happening in a shorter span of time than we would have in the past, because we were able to carry that knowledge forward.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love how you just started with leaning into authenticity as an undergrad, like, which is a very intimidating thing to do. A lot of people don't do it. It's a scary thing, or it can be a scary thing, but you leaned into it.
Well, I will say we did not have social media.
Yeah.
We did not have social media when I was in college. So I imagine it was a little bit easier for me. To be honest, social media changes the game in so many different ways, in good ways, but then also challenging ways that, I did not have. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, still, you still got judged, and social media may
100.
like put it on a wide scale, but you still have to deal with judgment, rejection, all those feelings that a lot of people don't like. And so, but action, leaning into authenticity led to more and more opportunity, and it's just put you in the spot where you are today, impacting and changing lives in the way you best can, And I think that's just a beautiful thing about life. And it's it's a two-sided coin for me, where it's a beautiful when you lean into it, but it's so sad when people don't, and when they don't take that action. It's just, and I'm sure you deal with that as a consultant and a coach, but we don't have to get into that. I appreciate you and your action is what I'm saying.
Thank
um,
you.
yeah, yeah, no, of course. I do want to. We're gonna skip the questions about Austin just because you're fascinating, and I want to get to the meat of the podcast. um,
Yeah.
so what are your dreams for your 501c3 social entrepreneurship, consultant and coaching business, your life in general, your family life? Just when you think about your ideal life in 15, 20 years, ideal vision for the world, what are like the top three things
Yeah.
you think of?
Yeah. So the vision, I'll start with the vision for my 501c3, which is Rise. And our vision is happy and healthy families in a just world. And for me, that's that's where I'm marching towards. That's where I join community in, because this is not an individual task. Like, no person can do this work on their own. There's a quote that I keep by my desk, and it's by Audre Lorde, and she says, "Without community, there is no liberation." So I always view my work within the community construct. Like, this is not individual work, this is community work. And the future for me is about people having families, children having the ability to thrive and um, have choice without obstacles that prevent them from experiencing those things. And for me, one of the biggest obstacles that I am out to dismantle is white supremacy and racism. I think that so there's so many angles, there's so many areas where we need to topple and dismantle white supremacy and racism. My angle and my entry point is in early care and education, and that's my focus. I am making a bet that that's where I'm going to go deep. One thing that I caution other entrepreneurs and other folks trying to really work towards transformative change is that, we want to kind of do it all and hit this and hit that. My strategy has been to go deep and just know, like, this is where I'm pushing in and this is where I'm leaning in, and I can't do everything. I can't do it all. And so when I think about then that, right, my focus area, which is early care and education, is my dream there, and my lifelong goal is that we're going to have universal early care and education. What does that mean? That every family, every child will have free universal early care and education, and very much public education. Every child has access to a free education. And I think that should be true belly to five. And that's where I'm marching towards. That's what this work is about. Because if you think about reducing that cost burden for parents, we can have more wealth. We can have less stress. That we know the toxic stress, changes babies' brains. It changes children's brains. And so you are creating these cycles of, just oppression and marginalization by something something like not having the ability to, thrive when you have young children. And I want to eliminate that obstacle for families to thrive. And the way we're going to do that is through universal care and education. And so that's where I'm headed. That's my lifelong goal of, before I leave this earth, that's what I want to see.
I love it. I love it. And when you say universal, are you talking universal across the world, Austin, US?
Well, so my focus, right? Well, the US is the only, let's be clear, the US is the only first world country that does not have universal care. Like, this exists everywhere else in major industrialized economies. It does not in the United States, and we know why. And that's because of racism and sexism and white supremacy. And the model exists. We know it can work. And so it's not income based, because this impacts all families, right?
Oh
Now
yeah.
it impacts all families different depending on your economic status, but middle income families are just as squeezed, and it's a problem for us all. And if we really want to have a better future for everyone, you know, we're going to reduce our carbon footprint and we're going to have universal care, right? Like it is, these are some critical things,
Yeah.
right? It
No,
should be a
absolutely.
public good. So that's what I'm working towards.
Awesome. Awesome. I love it. And so do you have any more dreams that you want to talk about? Or we just want to stick with that one. That's a good one. Oh,
Well, yeah, I mean, and then you asked about my personal, like when I think about my children, one of the things that my husband and I are doing are intentionally building wealth that we're going, generational wealth for them. I did not have that. I grew up in a working class home. Some would even consider it to be lower income. And we had a good life, but we didn't have, you know, the financial security and flexibility to do things beyond just survive. And my children, they're just so blessed because my husband and I are able to provide them with a life that allows them to survive and live a life of choice and freedom as two Black children. Just like, that's revolutionary,
it
right?
is.
And every day I think about making sure that they are affirmed and they love themselves and they're not experiencing the undue stress and burdens. Like, we can't protect them from institutionalized racism, like broadly, but then in our small ecosystem in our home, they love their Black and brown skin, and they love their curly hair. They have, we have we have a 529 plan, but I stopped investing in that because if you think about the future of education,
Oh yeah.
it's not going to be the 4-year degree. What is going to exist when they're ready to, finish high school, it's going to be so magnificent. We don't even know what it looks like yet. So we're moving their investments into more of a like a brokerage account, so that when they do turn 18, they're starting off with oh my gosh, they're starting off with their own, wealth and,
Absolutely.
financial security. I'm so sorry, this thing is going off.
Oh no, you're good. You're good.
Okay, give me 1 second.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys noticed, but she was talking about generational wealth. And that's
Yes,
awesome. I love
absolutely.
it.
And when we think about, we have a couple properties that we, now, when we bought them, they were, it was easy to have, it was easier to purchase a home. We bought our first house right after the housing collapse,
Oh yeah.
right, or right before the housing collapse, and so we didn't need jobs and income. They were, the whole predatory lending
Yep. Yep.
debacle. We got in on that, and we didn't. We benefited from it, whereas other folks, they were
Absolutely.
harmed by it. But that's generational wealth that we're going to be passing on to our children, and so that's important for me, that they don't have the student loans that I had. I mentioned that I have three. I might have mentioned this. I have 3 graduate degrees, and a couple of them were paid for, but one was not. And so between my husband and I, we had, a lot of student loan debt. Now we don't have that debt anymore, and we've been able to pay it all off, but I don't want my children to have to do that. And that sets them up for a stronger financial future and freedom that I didn't have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I am right there with you. I grew up in a similar lower middle income household, and we didn't have the wealth just being passed down. We didn't learn about how to create wealth either, and how to
Mm-hmm.
like just be consistent. And so it's a lot of stuff that I had to learn in college, and now I'm a recent graduate and really focused on starting now, because obviously the earlier you start, the more you have to compound, et cetera, et cetera. But
Exactly.
yeah, no, I love that. That's kind of a dream and goal of yours, and I applaud you for it, because there are a lot of people who aren't doing it, and it breaks my heart. But yes, are there any other dreams that you want to put out there real quick?
I think, that those take up a lot of my energy and time. But yeah, I would say those would be my main focus.
I love it. I love it. And so, is your primary way of generational wealth Roth IRA? Do you do some individual investing, some real estate investing, some um, how buying other assets? Like, do you want to go into that, or do you want to just
Yeah,
keep it
I'm
at we're
happy
building?
to.
Awesome.
I think financial literacy is an important skill to have. And the answer is yes. I love podcasts. I listen to a lot of podcasts, a lot of finance based podcasts. And one one person I remember saying, they're like, you should have 27 sources of income. And I was like, whoa, 27. And then
Yep.
so when I actually started breaking down our portfolio, I'm like, oh, wait, we're pretty close to that. So, we have real estate, we have Roth IRAs, we have traditional IRAs, we have ETFs, we invest in mutual funds. So we're more of the, I would say more of the conservative, if you will, in the financial investment portfolio. So I'm not really into trading stocks. My husband is more on that side, but I tend to stick to more of the long game. I'm always that's our strategy around, appreciating assets in the real estate. Um, and so yeah, it's like the multiple sources of income. As a consultant, we have contracts, we have individual payers, we have merchandise. So when you think about generational wealth, and you think about wealth accumulation, it's really about diversifying that portfolio in the multiple different ways, and then it accumulates, and it's always about the long game, and that's the game that we're playing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It is only the long game. Anything in the short game is really, it's not a wealth builder, it's to increase income. So you have more
Yeah.
discretionary income to build
Yeah.
your wealth.
Yeah. But the
Um,
other thing to that, is like living below your means. I
Absolutely.
like you can't do this if you're overspending. And
Yeah,
it sounds simple, but it's true. Um, and so, we pay off our cars, we paid off our student loans, we don't have consumer debt. We take a family vacation once. So it's not like we're living on ramen noodles, but we're also not overspending either.
absolutely. Absolutely. No, I love that. I love that. Um this is the stuff that really like, it's something I like so much. I get super excited talking about it. And when I get the chance to like, I know a little bit, like I know a decent amount. I've been educating myself for a while, but as for action, I have a lot of inexperience because I'm so young. But when I get to talk to people who are my age about it, who just aren't even on the same page as me yet, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it gets me so
Yeah.
excited.
Well, you have one of the best assets that someone like me does not. I mean, but you have time. Like one of the assets, finance, and when you think about wealth, is time and the compound of time. So even if you start off with $50 a week, $25 a week,
Yep.
that will balloon into millions of dollars. And I learned, I mean, I did it without even really understanding the implications when I was, a 20 something starting my career. And now I'm reaping the benefits of that now because of how the stock market is performing. But yeah, if you have young people listening, do it now.
Yeah.
$25. Start simple. Vanguard. Go, there's lots of podcasts out there that will teach you how to get started. I would recommend a Roth for a lot of folks, because that's after tax investment, and it will grow, and it can be another savings account for you. You can always take it out, if you need to.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
No, yeah, I love it. All righty. So this is also one of my favorite questions. If you were able to have somebody help you with your dreams right now, how would they do it?
Yep. So I will say that this is already happening. Like I said earlier, this is about community. It's not do this on my own. And so there's a concept around how do we solve problems, and you can kind of think of three personality types. You have your problem finders. So that's the person, if you present a solution, like, oh, we can do this. Oh, well, no, that's not going to work because of X, Y, and Z. Oh, no, no one's going to do that. And they can find a problem in every solution that you come up with. And then you have the group of folks who are the problem solvers, and they actively look for solutions to problems, but their mindset is that they themselves are the source of the solution, and they have to spend hours upon hours doing the research. They have to, do the heavy lifting to solve the problem. And then you have your third group of folks who consider themselves to be solution seekers, which is who I identify as. And a solution seeker disposition is that we don't care where the solution comes from. We just trying to work together to find the solution. And that solution I may not be the source of that solution. And so the way that I see it is that, I'm marching towards this universal care. There's a lot of folks out here who are doing this work as well. So how do I join in community with them? What ideas do they have? How can we collaborate? How can we join forces? And so I'm constantly building those connections, building that community. And so that's really how I think about it. But then most directly, I need a building. So if there's anyone listening who has access to real estate, COVID has changed the game. These big box companies aren't having these large office spaces anymore. So, if you need to offload your building, we're 501c3.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I am actually a realtor, and I have access to a bunch of EXP agents. So I'll definitely put that out there. Do you know what type of building you're looking for?
We need 10,000 square feet. So it's quite a bit. It needs to be in a commercial zone that can be zoned to childcare, and it needs outdoor space. Those are the reason why it's very hard. The reason why we don't have more childcare spaces in the Austin core is because the lack of space and the building requirements you need to really have a high quality learning environment for children.
Gotcha. Commercial zoned. And did you say you were looking for somebody to offload their building, as in they would give it to you guys, like donate it to the 501c3?
We're looking for all options. Again, going back to solution seeking, we don't we are seeking a solution on our building. we are agnostic on how we get to said solution. It could be a donation. It can be, a low lease rate, because we found this building. It was great. It was right for us, but the lease was $20,000 a month. And if we're really trying to create access to transformative early childhood education for all families, $20,000 price tag per month it prevents us from doing that. So,
gotcha.
Yeah.
What would be your ideal lease rate? Ideal 0, but
yes. So, one of the models that we have been watching closely has been the open door preschool. They have a very similar model in which they're seeking to create diverse learning environments for children. And they partner with foundation communities to help them find their space. And I know in one circumstance, their lease rate is $1 because foundation community has you know, included their childcare in their part in their community, but they have another space that they pay, I think, about $5,000 a month, and that felt sustainable for them. And so that's kind of like the benchmark I have in my mind around what's reasonable, because, you know, commercial real estate owners still have bills to pay. I understand that. And so there's, you know, opportunity in between tax credits and, you know, write-offs and, you know, and a little bit of input. So
Yeah, for sure. Do you guys want to own a building at all? Or can a 501?
100%. Yeah, absolutely. That is one of the longer term goals, because, you know, when you have assets, you can leverage those assets for more assets. But we got to get the asset, we got to get up and running first. But that's the long game. That's absolutely the long game for sure.
Yeah. Have you ever heard about creative financing in real estate?
No, but would love to hear more.
Yeah. We could talk about more another time, because I know we've gone over our allotted amount of time. But yes, let's talk more about that. Also, pick up a book on it, because I know you love to read, and I know you will read it. Is there any other way that somebody can help you with your dream right now?
Just the encouragement, because, you know, this work is hard. You know, I'm pretty sure every other day I want to give up. And so, you know, it's like, keep going. You know, you got this. So the affirmation is important, that, you know, we're heading in the right direction, especially on the hard days.
Gotcha. Okay, constant encouragement. Beautiful. All right, and we'll run through our thriving three real quick, because I know you have a good book recommendation for people. So, what's your favorite book? What's one way you like to care for yourself? And one action step you can take right now to get to your dreams?
Yep. So I can't say it's my favorite, because I have lots of books that I love to death. But if I had to name one for our podcast, I would say President Obama's book on his newest book, The Promised Land. It, especially if you're listening, I go between the hardback and the Audible version. You know, on those hard days, it's very soothing to hear his voice. But it just brings, he brings so much hope that it's going to be okay. And so that's the book that I decided to name here. It's long, so give yourself some time to get through it. One way I care for myself is exercising. I exercise I exercise every day of the week, but rigorously 5 days a week. And it's the way that I am able to keep going. So self, you know, wellness, you know, also meditation, journaling is a practice I do as well. And then one action step I take to get to my dreams, again, it's just really being a student of the work, because, you know, I don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are a lot of smart people out here thinking about my industry and thinking about doing the work that I'm doing. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here at this conference, is because there are other folks who are trying to solve this problem. And so I'm constantly, like, even right before we got on here, I'm reading a book about the childcare crisis and what caused it, so that I can use that to inform my design. And so that's one step that I'm actually taking right now. It's just understanding the industry, understanding the history, understanding the moving pieces of it.
Yeah, awesome. Love it. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Any last words you want to say before we hop off?
Just gratitude of what you're doing, Timothy. Like, this is amazing. I know podcasts are not easy things to keep going. So I want to encourage you and affirm the work that you're doing. And just so grateful to have had the opportunity to get to know you. I hope we stay connected beyond this. So yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And yeah, let's stay connected. We definitely will. Let's get you into a building. I think, especially after you look over some creative financing options, you'll run into something that's like, oh, let's get that done.
Yeah, yes, I'll look into that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Choquette, thank you so much for being on the show. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. And we'll get
All
this
right.
published for you, and hopefully some people helping you out with your dreams and goals.
Thank you.
All righty.
Okay. Bye.